Yeah, we back. Yeah, we back. Now, I know you've seen the title. You're probably thinking, bro, what do you mean? Yes. Today we're going to be talking about the connection between Myron Gaines and the conflict in Sudan, right? The violence going on in Sudan. Now, first things first, I just want to say I'm not a fan of Myron Gaines, not a fan of Fresh and Fit. In the United States, Myron Gaines claims to be a black man, but ever since I first laid eyes on him, I just, I never really felt like that was my brother for real. I just looked at, just gave him the eyeball test. I was like, nah, you ain't my family. You ain't my brother. Then he opened his mouth and then he confirmed it. But anyways, with Sudan being in the news recently, I just want to use, Myron as the representative of the mindset that might be an influence behind some of the violence and the conflict and the the mentality that you see being exhibited by the criminals over in Sudan. And I also want to talk about the origins of these criminals in Sudan and how we ended up here today. How did we end up with men like Myron Gaines? Where did men like Myron Gaines come from? That mentality, that mindset, even back in his homeland, the mentality that gets actually, carried out through violence. What's the origin of that barbaric behavior, right? But anyway, before I get started, I also want to give out the disclaimer that I'm not attacking anyone's background or their identity. This is simply a discussion of history, culture, social behavior, right, through an anthropological and historical viewpoint, right? To understand how certain mindsets develop over time. I'm not targeting anybody based on their identity or their background. I just got to give that disclaimer for YouTube before we get started. Now, let's get into it. So what made me want to make this video was because I was looking at the news, as I typically do, and I seen headlines like this in the news. For example, a bloodbath is feared as rebels trap thousands in a Sudan city. The Sudan war takes a turn as a paramilitary force captures Darfur, threatening to split the country. Tens of thousands have been killed in 2 days in Sudan. Thousands have been slaughtered in El Fasher as Sudan's conflict deepens, driven by regional rivalries, right? So that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to actually dive in deeper than the surface level. Oh, it's the UAE, which it is the UAE. We're not going to let the UAE off the hook, right? We're not going to let them booty scratchers over in that part of the world off the hook. We got no love for them. Never that. Never that. One of our biggest enemies on the very low key, the UAE. I say it loud and proud. I've been saying it. Yeah, we're going to talk about the European. We're going to talk about the Frenchman. We're going to talk about them boys in Washington, but we never going to forget them boys in the UAE, the adversary, 100%. But of course, like I say, the boys in the UAE, they get off scot-free because take a look up on the screen. Back in March 2025, the UAE commits to a $1.4 trillion investment in the United States, according to the White House, right? So that right there, that's hush money, right? That's hush money. And the reason why I say it's hush money is because when the UAE is over in Sudan, smuggling the gold and destabilizing the country and backing the genocidal forces, right? They want the United States and all the so-called, defenders of human rights to look the other way, right? When they over in the Congo, collaborating with Kagame to get access to the gold, they want them boys in the United States, them Western powers to look away, right? Look the other way while I'm doing my dirt, right? When it comes to the UAE, they all over the continent, destabilizing the continent for the gold. Right? What they've been doing since the first time we met these dudes, right? They discovered that we had a whole bunch of gold and they've been covered in the gold ever since the days of Mansa Musa, Mansa Sakura. Man, back in the day, way back in the day, them boys been covered in what we had, been jealous of what we had, been trying to plot and scheme to get access to what we had, right? Still to this day, it never changed. Take a look up on the screen. A 2024 report estimated that between 2012 and 2022, the UAE received over 2,500 tons of illegal gold from Africa, valued at about $115 billion. This illicit trade occurs because much of the gold is undeclared, originating from informal mining, and is then laundered by transiting through the UAE. The UAE remains the most important buyer of Sudan's gold, as it has been since at least the early 2010s. Sudanese gold reaches Dubai through various routes, and from there, it enters the international markets, right? So when the boys in the UAE, when they go down to Washington and say, listen, we got $1.4 trillion, right? Where do you think they got it from? Where do you think they got the $1.4 trillion from, right? Let's continue, man. The reports state that 32% to 41% of Africa's gold production is undeclared, with the UAE being the primary destination for this undeclared gold, this illegal gold. The estimated value of the 2,569 tons of illegal gold from Africa that arrived in the UAE is about $115 billion. The UAE remains the major destination of gold extracted in RSF-controlled areas via Libya, Chad, and South Sudan. Now, RSF, that's the genocidal, criminal barbarians over in Sudan committing crimes against humanity, right? So in the areas they control, the UAE, they eating off that, right? They eating heavy off that. Now, typically, right, the countries that claim to be about democracy and, I'm seeing Ted Cruz talking about, man, we need to save the Christians in Nigeria, things like that, right? Like I'm seeing all type of nonsense, right? The guy's always first on the scene to protect human rights. You notice they never gonna say nothing about them boys in the UAE, right? They're not gonna say nothing, right? Crimes against humanity happen in broad day, backed and supported and sponsored by the UAE, but ain't nobody saying a damn thing, right? Really, that's how it goes, man, right? The RSF, the genocidal barbarian criminals in Sudan, they control the areas conveniently with the gold mines, right? So they smuggle the gold out of the country. The UAE, under the table, takes the gold, right? And in return, the RSF gets money, weapons, and whatever they need, right? So that's a big driver of the violence that we see. That's one aspect of it. Another aspect that we're going to talk about is why would these individuals, right, these so-called Sudanese Arabs, why would they collaborate with the UAE? Why would they, collaborate with some random individuals from the Arabian Peninsula to destroy their country? And also, why are they waging a genocide? Yes, we got to call it what it is, a genocide against the native black population that's been there since the beginning of time, right? The cradle of civilization for thousands and thousands of years. Why are they committing crimes against humanity against these groups, right? And it's really a historical phenomenon that we've seen throughout history. Now, a lot of people on the surface, they might just say, they might look at somebody like Myron Gaines, back to Myron. They might look at somebody like Myron Gaines and say, that's a black man. Even Myron himself has referred to himself as a black man, but when I looked at him, you could see, man, I see the DNA of the Arab all in your phenotype, all in your presentation, right? I could already see it. I could see the imprint, the genetic footprint of the men from the Arabian Peninsula as soon as I look at your face. Now, for those familiar with Sudan, you already know, like many other nations that have a history of, long-term mixing over the centuries amongst different groups, there's a caste system. There's a caste system in Sudan. And at the top of that caste system, at the top of that so-called hierarchy, sits the Arab, right? Sits the man from the Arabian Peninsula. And at the bottom of that hierarchy is the native black African, dark-skinned African that's been there since the beginning of time. That's his homeland. He sits at the bottom, the indigenous black man and black woman, right? And the same thing happens in all nations that have a whole bunch of mixing. That it is what it is. But anyway, so that's how we get men like Myron Gaines, right? And that's how we get men like the RSF, the genocidal barbarians, killing innocent civilians. Now, before we get started, let's take a look at some of the reactions on social media. This person said, let's get it right. Arabized Africans with the backing of the Arab nations, the UAE, and their mercenaries are wiping out African towns and villages in Sudan. It is important because ultimately there is a racism component that even predates European racist ideology. This person said, the only requirement to be an Arab in Sudan is if you descend from an Arab paternally. You can be 98% Dinka with an Arab paternal line and you're counted as an Arab. Now, that is true. That is also what is unique about Sudan, right? In Sudan, you could have somebody who's like, he's an African man, but because he descends from, some Arab merchant, now he's an Arab. Now he an Arab booty kisser, but he just black for real. But now he's an Arab butt kisser because of some Arab guy that had relations with a black woman, hundreds of years ago. So now he thinks that he's better than everybody else in the room now. So much better that these guys actually carry out violence based on that belief. Now, of course, Sudan is not the only place this phenomenon took place. We're going to discuss other instances as well, but I would say Sudan is just the most brazen and just like it's really strange. But anyway, let's continue. This person said, I am part Jalin, one of the largest Arabized Nubian groups in the north. Seeing Sudanese Arab discourse is so cringe and embarrassing because everybody knows that we are LARPers. When our weddings, songs, and dances all come from the Nubian culture, yet we latch on to that Arab bullshit. Listen, he said, everybody knows we are LARPers. Everybody knows we are fraudulent. And that's why I said just now, the Sudanese situation is really strange because it's not like Brazil, where you see in Brazil, a lot of these folks are deeply mixed, right? It was a lot of mixing, right? A lot of like generational mixing. So much so that they actually have a real stake in the claim of the other culture, I would say so. But in Sudan, even though you also have, a lot of mixing there too, A lot of times, a lot of these guys are just cosplayers, right? A lot of these guys are just fraudulent. They just latching on to that distant Arab ancestor, that distant Arab merchant, that distant Arab traveler. You know, they latching on to that dude so hard, that one ancestor, right? They ignoring all the other African ancestors, right? All the other African ancestors pushed to the back, you know, go to the back. Like what did Mona Leo say? All the non-Arabs to the back, right? So listen, he only looking at them Arab ancestors, right? My Arab forefathers, right? So he cosplaying. He just butt kissing. And you also see the same thing with Myron Gaines, how Myron Gaines goes so hard for Palestine. And it's nothing wrong with going so hard for Palestine, but he never really goes hard for his own homeland, because in his homeland, he's the one doing the killing. His folks, his group is the one doing the mass murdering. So that's why on his podcast, you never see Myron going in deep on his history or going in deep on his culture and breaking it down for the people to understand, because he knows, he don't want to talk about that. He don't want to talk about that. So instead, he carries water for the Palestinians, right? Because he wish he was from the Arab Peninsula. He wish he were Arab, right? That's why he'd go so hard, right? But anyway, let's continue. This person said, the craziest part of this Sudan conflict is that no one is addressing the real issue at hand. Everyone is throwing the UAE under the bus, understandably so, but is disingenuous. This is not the first time that Darfurians are being genocided. In fact, the first genocide of the 21st century was back in 2003. In 2003, there was no UAE backing the present-day RSF. It was the Sudanese government. The conflict is pretty simple. Janjaweed is an Arab militia that is ethnically cleansing African tribes in Darfur, black people. Massing this as a UAE issue overlooks the bigger problem, which is anti-black racist sentiment in the Arab world. If this is not addressed and talked about, Darfurians will be genocided again in 20 years, and this time the RSF will be backed by somebody else. Black people need to know that they will always have a target on their backs and need to act and respond accordingly. Sadly, the Darfurian tribes identify much more with Islam, which they share with the Northerners, and they always think they can work it out. Now, let's continue. This person said, Black Sudanese people are being killed on an industrial scale by low IQ Browns cosplaying as Arabs high on narcotics. Now, I want to get into something I posted on my community tab earlier today. I said this: anthropologists need to conduct research on why societies with extensive mixing always leads to discrimination, war, caste systems, and mass killings against the native black population. We have seen similar things play out in Latin America throughout history, with blacks being wiped out of Argentina, the caste systems in Brazil, Rafael Trujillo committing mass murder against Haitians even though he himself descended from a Haitian woman. Mixing always leads to a bunch of European Arab cosplayers committing crimes against humanity. The blacks in Sudan are being mass murdered simply because we allowed Arab merchants and travelers to intermix into the society centuries ago. John Henrik Clarke was going to write a book on this historical phenomenon, but he died before he could finish it. Now, we got to go back to the origins of these barbaric criminals and guys like Myron Gaines. Where'd they come from? Take a look up on the screen. The Sudanese Arab ethnic group finds its origins in the centuries-long admixture of indigenous African populations with Arab immigrants, as well as from cultural and linguistic shifts to an Arab identity, culture, and language, leading to a unique cultural identity. The transformation towards an Arab identity accelerated with the arrival of Arab tribes during the 15th to the 19th centuries. These tribes brought Islam and the Arabic language, which became widely spread across Sudan. This interaction was characterized by marriage, trade, and assimilation of the indigenous people into an Arab Islamic culture. The historical formation of Sudan's so-called Arab population is one of the most complex legacies of centuries of migration and intermarriage along the Nile Valley. Genetic and historical studies agree that what we now call Arab identity in Sudan did not replace the indigenous African base, but was layered on top of it. From around the 7th century onward, Arab traders and pastoralists began settling in the region following the spread of Islam. Most of these settlers were men, and they often married local African women. Modern DNA research confirms this pattern. Y chromosome data shows a predominance of the Near Eastern haplogroup J1, which indicates Arab paternal ancestry, while mitochondrial DNA passed through the mothers is overwhelmingly African, showing that the maternal lines remain native. Now, time out, my fault. I remember back a couple slides back, I forgot to finish reading that passage, right? I forgot the last couple sentences, so we got to go back to that. The Arabic language became the primary medium of communication and a symbol of social and religious prestige that contributed to cultural change. Now, even though in this video we're talking about Sudan, Sudan is not the only place in the world where this phenomenon occurred. We're going to touch other places as well. Like we mentioned before, Latin America is a big one. You know, pretty much anywhere where these foreigners came through and laid down their feet. You know, what came later was this, discombobulated society. But anyway, let's continue. Over time, this evolved into a stratified social system in which Arabized groups came to see themselves as distinct and often superior to the darker-skinned indigenous populations. The Arabic language, Islam, and claims of noble Arabian descent became tools for social mobility and power. What I tell you, what I just say earlier in the video, right? They be holding on tight to that distant Arab ancestor from centuries ago, right? That distant Arab ancestor, Muhammad al-Shadek. They be holding on tight, right? They gonna disregard all the other African ancestors, right? Just to hold on tight to that distant Arab that came through a long time ago, right? And unfortunately, this actually plays out in genocidal tendencies, unfortunately. Now, back to what I said about using Myron as the representative or the avatar for, you know, some of the, you know, crimes against humanity we see taking place in Sudan, right? So for those who might not be familiar with Myron Gaines, I'm going to play a few clips to kind of get an understanding of his mentality and the type of culture that he comes from. You know, run the clips. I'll be right back.
Now, why am I telling you idiots this? Simple as that. Use proper English. Don't be a criminal. Don't be on welfare. Work hard. Don't ask for handouts. Totally safe, no blacks. Dude, I'm telling you, no blacks, you can relax. Everybody hates blacks, man. Everybody hates blacks, man. You gotta stop the niggadry. You gotta stop it. I'm not trying to be around niggas, bro. And this is how everybody feels. It's not just me. I'm just saying it. Nobody wants to be around y'all niggas, bro. Because you guys are fucking idiots. And then when someone says the truth, like I do, what do y'all do? Oh, you an Arab. You ain't even one of us. Oh, you an Arab. You an Arab.
No, I'm dying. I'm dead. Why he say that, bro? That's the first time listen, I just gathered a bunch of random Myron clips. This is my first time watching this. I am crying, bro. But that's so real. What else will we say, bro? You're not one of us. We look at you. Bro, you're not one of us, bro. We see in the Sudan, clearly you are not one of us. Right? Clearly, we can just look at what's taking place in the Sudan. We have black men, women, and children getting chopped down by the thousands in like 48 hours. Clearly, brother, you have made it known that you do not believe that you are one of us. So we are just simply confirming the evidence that you have brought to the table. That is it, man. We are just confirming the evidence that was brought to the table, to the courtroom by the prosecutors, man. That's it. Listen, you have been found guilty. You are definitely not one of us. Anyway, let's continue.
And that is why no one respects y'all. Honestly, that is why nobody respects you idiots. He's gonna say some dumb monkey shit like that. Call me a racist. I'm telling y'all the truth. Everybody else is a bitch. Well, you know, I don't want to talk shit about my black sisters and black brothers. Fuck that shit. Fuck that shit. Damn, y'all niggas piss me off. I'm at the airport. I see nothing but white people. I'm like, damn, this feels good. Bro, I can relax. Dude, I'm telling you, no blacks, you can relax. Hold on, you stupid nigger. Because that's what you stupid niggas do. You come in here on some bullshit, fucking 67 IQ, Donkey Kong, monkey motherfucker. You come in here saying that dumb shit with your big ass nostrils, right? You come in here with your fucking monkey ass nostrils talking shit.
What do you say about the chat saying that you can't pull a black woman?
I would say, why would I?
Where do you rank black women in terms of attractiveness?
All the way at the bottom.
Very bottom.
How you disrespect black women on your show?
Yeah.
You can't disrespect me. Because I'm the nigga walk up here, throw this drink in your face, and let you know what's up.
Oh, you gonna do that?
Yeah.
Oh, that won't be good, man. That won't be good, bro.
I'm Hamilton though.
That won't be good. That won't be good.
Now we back. Now before Myron Gaines, before Myron Gaines, we had individuals like this, the man on the screen, Rafael Trujillo, Generalissimo, Rafael Trujillo. You can also take somebody like him as an example of how a similar phenomenon occurred on this side of the world, right? And that's why I said anthropologists got to really conduct research in this field of study. We really got to analyze, the human behavior and the psychology of how things like this play out. Now, let's get into the origins of Trujillo, right? Take a look up on the screen. His father was Jose Trujillo Valdez, the son of Silveria Valdez Mendez of colonial Dominican origin, and Jose Trujillo Monagas, a Canary Islander sergeant who arrived in Santo Domingo as a member of the Spanish reinforcement troops during the annexation era. Trujillo's mother was Altagracia Julia Molina Chevalier, also known as Mama Julia, daughter of the farmer Pedro Molina Peña, also of colonial Dominican origin, and teacher Luisa Chevalier, whose parents were of Saint-Domingue Creole origin. Saint-Domingue, that was the colony under the French. Let's continue. Chevalier, Trujillo's maternal grandmother, was the daughter of Justin Victor Turenne Carrier Blaise, who was of French descent, and Eleanor Juliette Chevalier Moreau, who was part of the island's French mulatto class. From her mother's side, Chevalier was the granddaughter of Louise Moreau and her husband, Bernard Chevalier Louverture, a mulatto Haitian high-ranking officer and a politician that established in San Cristobal, who was the son of a French nobleman, Jean-Baptiste Chevalier, and his wife, Marie-Noëlle Louverture. Yes, Rafael Trujillo is a descendant of Toussaint Louverture, right? I think that's like his great-great, like, uncle or something like that, right? Toussaint Louverture's great-great-nephew is Rafael Trujillo. That's crazy, bro. Now, he's connected to Toussaint because obviously his great-great, grandmother or whatever is Marie-Noëlle Louverture, and that was Toussaint's baby sister. That was the baby sister of Toussaint Louverture, and she was married to some Frenchman named Jean-Baptiste Chevalier, and it seems to me that Toussaint married his sister off to some French aristocrat. And back during that time, Toussaint was the commander-in-chief of the government and the military on the colony, so that marriage most likely took place to secure his legitimacy, in the international community with the French elites back in the metropole. So as you can see, some French aristocrat married Toussaint's sister. They had a child together, Bernard Chevalier Louverture, a man of mixed race heritage, the son of Marie-Noëlle Louverture. He was a Haitian officer and politician during the early to mid 19th century. Then I believe the family later relocated to the Dominican Republic. He married a woman named Louise Moreau. I believe she was I don't know her origins, but they had a child together, Eleanor Juliette Chevalier Moreau. They were part of the mulatto class on the island, right? Then I believe she married a Frenchman, and they had a child together by the name of Louisa, Chevalier, and she married a man named Pedro, who was a farmer in the Dominican Republic. They had a child together named Altagracia Julia Molina, Mama Julia, right? And she had obviously Rafael Trujillo, and Rafael Trujillo, even though he came from, Haitian royalty, he came from, illustrious Haitian ancestry, he still went on to commit crimes against humanity against the Haitian people, right? Take a look up on the screen. In late September and early October 1937, the Dominican military, assisted by local authorities and civilians, rounded up Haitians living near the border. The victims were then beaten or hacked to death with machetes to make it seem as though the killings were carried out by Dominican farmers rather than the army. Estimates vary widely regarding the number of Haitians killed by Dominican dictator Rafael Trujillo, but most place the total number between 12,000 and 35,000. The exact death toll is unknown because many bodies have never been found. Now, I don't want to just single out Trujillo. It's a bunch of leaders in Latin America that I could point out that had government issued campaigns to bring, war and crime against the black populations, right? So, we could go to Brazil, we could go to Argentina, we could go to various countries. I just decided to pick, the DR, Rafael Trujillo just came off the top of my head because of the connection that he has to the Haitian forefathers, to be a descendant, to be a nephew of the Haitian forefathers, and then commit, mass murder against the Haitian people, right? It really connects to the phenomenon that we see happening in Sudan, right? These guys like Trujillo, instead of looking at all his illustrious forefathers, all his illustrious black forefathers, his African forefathers, right? Your great uncle, one of the greatest black men to ever live, right? But he don't care about that. He latching on to the conquistador with all his power, right? He holding on tight to the conquistador, man. He not even looking at Toussaint, right? Toussaint, he don't care about Toussaint. He not looking at Toussaint, all the amazing feats, all the legendary things Toussaint accomplished that he could lay claim to. Nah, he don't care about that, right? He looking at the Spanish pedophiles and the conquistadors that came to the island and committed genocide. He want to be like them, right? Listen, that's why I say anthropologists really have to examine this field of study, right? Toussaint Louverture gave his sister away to a Frenchman, and then that descendant of that union went on to commit mass murder, bro, against the Haitian people, bro. Toussaint, you was tripping for that, bro. You was tripping. All the black men in the army, all the illustrious black men in the army, you could have gave your sister to. You gave her to some Frenchmen. You tripping, bro. You tripping. You could have gave her to what's it called? To Clairvaux, right? You could have gave her, I mean, well, you know, the generals, they had all the women. I'm sorry. The generals had too much women. Like, when I read stories about, you know, Haitian history, these guys had so many damn kids. You know, these guys always had a bunch of kids. Of course, they had their wife. You know, that was the queen. She was on the throne. She was the one that everybody seen. She got the most respect. But these guys, man, they had so many kids running around the island. They had so many kids. But still, I still stand by that. I still stand by that. The army was massive. I guarantee it was somebody in the army that would have taken, you know, Mary Noel and had a nice, beautiful family. And then maybe we wouldn't have even had Rafael Trujillo. You know, maybe we wouldn't have even had Rafael Trujillo. But anyway, you know, what's already done is done. We can't dwell on that too heavy. But anyway, I want to go back to what I said. I mentioned John Henrik Clarke in my community tab post the other day. I want to go back to one of his lectures. Rest in peace to the ancestor, John Henrik Clarke. You know, he spoke about this phenomenon in society. I'm going to play his clip and I'll be right back.
The book is called The Role of the Bastard as a Factor in History. How people have bastardized other people through their women and used the bastard to control them. Then, having used the bastard, refused to accept the bastard in the home of the father that created him and send him back to his mother's people to start confusion.
Yes, like the book, yes.
All right, we back. Now, that's why I say, man, shout out to the ancestor, the illustrious ancestor, the forefather, Antonin Furman, you know, the Minister of Foreign Affairs. I remember back in the late 1800s, the United States wanted to establish a military base on the island, right? And then they came to the Haitian government, and Antonin Furman, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, said, nope, hell no, we can't do that, never that. And on top of that, when he was the Minister of Foreign Affairs, I remember that he changed the Constitution to say that you can only be a Haitian citizen if your father is black, right? If your father is a German merchant, can't do it. Your father is a Frenchman, can't do it. Your father is an American, can't do it. And the reason for that is during that time, the law on the books was, since the day of independence, was that a white man couldn't own land in the country. If you're a white man, you couldn't own land. So what these guys would do is they would come in and you know, get with the local women. They would have kids, and then through their children, they'd be able to, you know, own land and have property and engage in commerce by virtue of their children having full Haitian citizenship. So Antonin Furman seen the game. He seen the play that was running, right, since back in the 1850s, right? So when he came to power in the late 1800s, he adjusted the Constitution and said, listen, if your father not a black man, if your father don't got that African blood, listen, we can't do it. We can't do it. You know, you could be a citizen of your father's country, but a citizen of this here territory, nah, you can't do it, partner. You can't do it. So yeah, but when the Americans invaded in 1915, of course they abolished that law on the Constitution, you know, the law that prohibited white men from owning land and prohibited the children of foreigners from, you know, having citizenship. Yeah, they reversed that. But Antonin Furman, because he's seen a play, you know, he's seen the game that was running, right? He adjusted the Constitution during his time. And that stopped a lot of that scamming. That stopped a lot of these guys coming from overseas trying to, you know, plant their feet in the territory, right? That discouraged a lot of foreigners and traders and merchants trying to marry into certain families because there would be no incentive to. But yeah, man, like I said, man, the anthropologists need to, you know, get started on this field of study. Why do the children of foreigners end up, not all the time, but sometimes observed throughout history, become genocidal and hostile to the native black population that's just minding their business. You know, we need to figure out why is that, you know, why. I mean, we know it's the culture, the influence from the culture of the foreigners, but why is that? You know, why is so much hostility to the point of like crimes against humanity taking place? And, you know, even the example of Argentina, where an entire black population was erased. Like, that's crazy, bro. Like, we done been genocided in certain countries, right? Just because these folks wanted to get closer to their non-black ancestry. That's wild. That's wild, bro. That's wild. We gotta examine this field of study. They'll never teach us this in school. They will never teach us things like this in school, bro. Never that. It's too touchy of a subject. It's too real. But anyways, I'm not gonna be here too long, man. It's your boy Neferkari. That's Salim back in the Billy. Yes, indeed. Second single off the next project, Inspire and Bamako. Pin comment at the top. Link in the description. Support the Patreon, NTD1814, and I'm gone. Peace.
Feel like it's me, I feel like I'm Saudi or ran up on Yana in the middle of Bamako. Enemy line, they claiming he innocent. Don't do no talking, I gotta move militant. Don't do no talking, I hit him with facts. 1804, bringing it back. 1804 like I'm Mother Cap Henry. King with the vision, the crown never empty. Top of the mountain, my soldiers defend me. Ducking and dodging the foreign intelligence. Hitting my dance on the DGSE. Dodging they traps, still on my feet. Feeling impeccable, feel like I'm shining. Go to my neck and I'm flooded with diamonds. Go to my neck and I feel like a mess. Feel like a lion, I'm in a savannah. Feel like the king when I'm up in the jungle. Never defeated, I never been humble. Come out victorious every encounter. Money machine give me help when I count it. Money machine stack it up in a beat. Heart of a king and I ride for the team. Weight of the world got it stuck on my shoulders. Bet you can feel it, my heart getting colder. Yeah, gotta stay focused so when it's in shots, I gotta react. Cause I'm a target, I'm under attack. Grabbing a weapon, I tell her get back. Mission exposed, secrets unfold. Enemy try, but I'm still in control. Got your boy sitting in Bamako prison. Hoping they wish we sending them home. Enemy know that we good under pressure. Been through the thunderous, turbulent storm. Shorty a diamond, I told her she pressure. Hop in a whip and I'm taking her home. Hop in a whip and I'm swerving, I'm smashed. Killing my enemies, one of my passion. Rocking this gold like we in bikini. Feel like the captain, I'm clutching a heater. Yeah, gotta stay focused so when it's in shots, I gotta react. Cause I'm a target, I'm under attack. Grabbing a weapon, I tell her get back. Mission exposed, secrets unfold. Enemy try, but I'm still in control. Got your boy sitting in Bamako prison. Hoping and wishing we sending them home. Enemy know that we good under pressure. Been through the thunderous, turbulent storm. Shorty a diamond, I told her she pressure. Hop in a whip and I'm taking her home. Hop in a whip and I'm swerving, I'm smashed. Killing my enemies, one of my passion. Rocking this gold like we in bikini. Feel like the captain, I'm clutching a heater.